Hello students, and welcome to our power on stall execution video. Before we jump into the cockpit, let's quickly discuss the objective of this maneuver and some key factors that we will be focusing on. The objective of a power on stall is to simulate and practice the proper recovery techniques for a stall that may occur during takeoff, climb, go around, or when trying to clear an obstacle. In this maneuver execution video, we will not be covering the detailed aerodynamics, maneuver diagrams, common student errors, or the ACS standards. This video is to simply explain and demonstrate the execution of the maneuver and will vary based on the aircraft you are flying. To see all of the additional details we just mentioned and to study this lesson's full-length presentation, podcast, diagrams, flashcards, lesson quiz, and more, look up the Power on Stalls lesson on our website at wificfi.com. Lastly, before we jump into the cockpit, there are a couple key factors that we need to cover regarding this maneuver. We're going to go ahead and start out in the practice area. The airplane will already be climbed up to a safe altitude to perform the stall and stall recovery. Remember that you need to be able to perform this stall and completely recover above 1500 feet AGL. So we're going to go up to 2500 feet AGL in this example in the practice area so that we can perform this stall and recover before losing too much altitude and staying above that 1500 feet AGL. Next, we will complete clearing turns to ensure that there is not traffic in our immediate vicinity. We'll then configure the aircraft for takeoff and liftoff. We're going to be simulating a liftoff departure stall. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring our power back. We're going to slow down, maintaining our altitude to between 60 and 65 knots. We're going to use this speed because that's typically the speed that the aircraft will become airborne when you're doing like a normal takeoff and climb procedure. Remember, in this Cessna 172 that we've been using, we rotate at 55 knots and we usually get airborne between 60 and 65. So that's the speed that we're going to be slowing to in today's example. As we're slowing to that speed, we're also going to configure the aircraft for takeoff by setting the flaps to 10 degrees. If you're flying in an aircraft with retractable and extendable landing gear, you would also extend the landing gear at this point as well. Obviously, we have fixed landing gear, so we're not going to be doing that today. Once we do slow to our target airspeed of 60 to 65 knots, we will smoothly increase our power all the way to full power and begin to pitch the nose of the aircraft to approach the stall. Now, this can be done straight ahead or in a bank to the left or right, but we're just going to go ahead and do it straight ahead today. We will acknowledge the impending stall, such as the stall horn, the buffet, if you've got a stick shaker, anything like that. You're going to acknowledge that out loud, say, okay, here's the stall horn, or I feel the buffeting, whatever it may be. And we're going to recover at the first indication of a stall that we receive. So as soon as we hear that horn, we're going to begin our recovery. We recover by immediately reducing the angle of attack sufficiently to begin building airspeed. So we're going to pitch our nose down to begin building that airspeed and get away from that stall. As the airspeed is building, we're going to gently retract our flaps and landing gear as applicable. Again, we don't have landing gear to retract today. And we're going to establish a climb speed of Vx if we have obstacles in our path, or Vy if we do not. Now we're just simulating today, so we're going to accelerate to a Vy climb out speed of 74 knots in this example. At which point, so you'll be climbing out at your Vy, you will return to whatever heading, altitude, and airspeed needed and specified by your flight instructor and or check ride examiner. So let's go ahead and head into the cockpit and show you guys how a power on stall works. Alrighty, so we are here at our plane in the practice area. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start doing these clearing turns. As I'm doing the clearing turns, I'm going to kind of explain where we're at in the process and explain what we're going to do for the next couple steps for this power on stall. So what we do have to do is we've got to do our clearing turns. We're going to do a left 90-degree turn, so I'm going to go ahead and turn to 270. We'll be looking for traffic, and then we'll do a right 90 and look for traffic as well. I'm just going to kind of set up my heading bug so I remember what heading I'm turning to. And we're going to be looking for traffic. Now, for this maneuver, we are in the practice area, right? We're doing our clearing turns, we're looking for traffic. We do want to recover for this maneuver above 1500 feet AGL. So that's why, as you can see from our altitude bug, we've bugged 2500. That gives us 1,000 feet to complete the stall, which should be plenty of altitude to perform the stall and the proper recovery. And instead of doing a right 90, I'm going to go ahead and do another left 90. So we did a full 180 here. Looking for traffic outside, seeing if we see anything. Making sure there's nobody in the vicinity as we practice this maneuver here. Okay, we're going to use those buildings out there as our outside visual reference point. So let me go ahead and just kind of sync up our heading. You always want to pick an outside visual reference point so you have something to look at. Remember, we're going to be doing this straight ahead. You can do it in a turn, but we're going to go ahead and do it straight ahead. So we're going to take our city out there straight ahead. That's what we're going to use for our outside visual reference point. And I've got my heading bugged for that outside visual reference. Okay, we've done our clearing turns. We're at a good altitude. We're just in a cruise configuration right now. So I'm going to go ahead, kick off the autopilot, start slowing the aircraft down while holding altitude. Remember, we're going to stay at our 2,500 feet. But I'm going to bring the power back, hold our altitude, and so we just start to slow to that 60 to 65 knots. At which point, we'll go ahead and perform the stall. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. Oop, wrong button there. Okay, so we got our autopilot off. I'm going to bring my power way back here. Probably about 1600 maybe RPM or so for this aircraft. And I'm just going to hold altitude here at 2,500 feet and slow down. Remember, we usually take off with flaps for our normal takeoff in this aircraft, so I'm going to extend a notch of flaps. I'm just holding my altitude, and we're on our heading, and we're approaching that 60 to 65 knots as we're holding our heading and altitude. Once we do, we're smoothly going to add that full power in on our aircraft and pitch the nose of the aircraft up quite a bit to see if we can't get to that stall. Now, in the real aircraft, you probably won't be pitching up this high. Okay, this is the flight simulator. It's got more power, more performance than a typical aircraft. But remember, we're going to cover at the first indication of a stall. So get the stall. There's the horn. We're going to go ahead, reduce our angle of attack. We're going to start to build up our airspeed. As our airspeed's building up, we're going to establish that climb at about VY, so we can climb out away from obstacles here, getting the aircraft nice and trimmed out, and we'll retract our flaps and continue our VY climb. And let's say we want to climb up to 3,000 feet now. We'll just kind of stay on our same heading, but we'll climb up to 3,000 feet, where we'll go ahead and level out, so then we can go ahead and bring our power back, trim down a little bit, get back into our cruise configuration for our aircraft at 3,000 feet, and still on our heading. So, again, in the simulator has quite a bit more performance than the actual aircraft. You're probably not going to be pitching like 15 degrees pitch up to get that stall horn to come on, right? To get that stall to happen. However, when you bring that power back, you will have to pitch up, and just be patient. You know, you lose about 1 or 2 knots per second, whatever. Get to that stall. Once you hear that stall horn, or the first indication of a stall, maybe buffeting or something else, you immediately reduce your angle of attack, add that full power, which it already should be in, and then we're going to begin building our airspeed back to that VY. As we're doing that, we can retract our flaps and continue our climb at VY speed to the next, whatever it may be, the next heading and the next altitude specified by, you know, your flight instructor or the check ride examiner. So that's it, guys, for this power on stall execution maneuver video. Next video, we're going to be doing power off stalls, so we'll go ahead and see you guys on that video coming up soon.